making generative AI available to YAM phones, as we affectionately call them. So about the session, we'll go into that. Introduction to Viamo, for those of you who don't know about Viamo. And again, Viamo is via mobile. We'll talk about Viamo in Ghana, our platform, the problem, that's the digital divide. We'll talk about the solution to bridge this digital divide. Interestingly, we have a pilot of this in Zambia. So I'll run you through the session, the results from the pilot, and finally, you will have a live demo of the tool. It is alive. I don't know if it's sentient, but it's alive. And questions and answers, and also feedback, since this is very early stages of this innovative solution. So we'd also love to hear from you, your user experience. Right, so perhaps I can go into Viamo. So 10 years ago in Tamale, a couple of engineers wanted to solve a problem reaching pregnant women with messages. They started in northern Ghana, in Tamale. They started with SMS, but very early on found out that SMS was not a great medium to reach women. So there was a pivot to voice. After the first intervention, we realized there was an actual need. So there was a small project, and then there was the market clearly needed a product where we could reach the disconnected communities with voice messages in a language they understand. So Viamo tools are solely, not only, but mostly powered by voice in local languages. I'm happy to say that from the humble beginnings in Tamale in 2013, Viamo is now in 25 countries globally. I personally have implemented projects physically in Ethiopia, in Rwanda, in Nigeria, and I'm just coming back from Liberia. So a truly wholly Ghanaian innovative product has scaled globally, and one of the success stories that we have. We don't tell our story as much as we should, but we'll be doing so. Our director of engineering, who was employee number 3, will be joining us shortly, and he is actually the brainchild of this solution. So in the last year, in 2022, we've been able to disseminate 538 million key messages to over 24 million people. And in terms of minutes, there's been 1.3 million minutes that have been listened to of information, critical information. So I'll cut to the chase. We'll get to the AI section very soon, but just a brief introduction. So 3 billion people are disconnected, right, from the internet. And AI, as much as it holds so much promise, might deepen the divide even further. What Viamo does is we connect disconnected communities with organizations that want to provide critical information for them to live healthy, prosperous lives and bridge the digital divide. We're into all sectors, including health, entrepreneurship, youth, food safety, food security, agriculture, basically the SDGs. And again, this is a heat map of where our operations have scaled to globally. And in purple, we have actual country offices, and in pink is where we have implemented projects. And again, our bread and butter really is engaging with hard-to-reach audiences, right? So that's a list of the countries that we worked in, from Afghanistan to Nepal to Uganda to Ghana. Again, a wholly Ghanaian product. And for people who use our platform, we know 36% are women and girls, 50% identify as youth and women, 70 are under 24 years, and 76 are rural. Very important, rural. So that's why when we talk about generative AI for smartphones, we are looking at the rural disconnected populations. Right. So when we want to access information, we know that 52% across the board have radio, 30% have access to connected TV, and 100 in Ghana, phone penetration is 100%, higher than 100%. It's ubiquitous. All of us have phones. I have two. I actually have 3 SIMs, thanks to the mobile networks. So we know that mobile phones are a very easy way for people to access the information that is useful to them. All of us do. And especially if it's freely accessible and in a language they understand, that progresses development astronomically. So again, the Viamo platform, envision it as a search engine for the disconnected, right? So it is voice-based, it is toll-free, and anyone in Ghana can call it for free and listen to information on health, on agric, on entrepreneurship, and on weather. One of our most accessed information is by farmers on weather, daily weather, and this is all automated, innovative from the back-end engineering. If you're on MTN, you can dial, not now, but 5100 for UNICEF. UNICEF Ago Hotline. It provides health information for young people. Till date, we have over 9 million calls from young people. If you're on Vodafone, you can dial 321 on Vodafone, and you're able to access a whole repository of information from health, agric, skills development, entrepreneurship, and so on and so forth. So this is sort of a schematic of the kind of information. So it's a search engine for the disconnected. But this is proprietary and scaled across all 21 plus countries that we work in. So some of the partners that we work with include Google, USA, GIZ, UNICEF, Johnson & Johnson, Facebook, and so on and so forth. Currently in Ghana, Viamo is working with Oxfam, UNICEF, Solidaridad, Farm Radio, KNUST, UNCDF, and the list goes on. And as I said, on Vodafone, 9.5 million calls have been placed to listen to critical information. You and I may not find this useful because we have access to the internet, right? But our relatives in Bamprugu, our relatives in Chufupraso may not have money to purchase a smartphone. They may not have money to buy a bundle. And that, as I said, deepens the digital divide. This is just a schematic of the number of calls to our UNICEF platform, sort of the languages that are available. So again, generative AI accessible in English. Soon, in a couple of years, will be accessible in Dagbani, Twi, Ewe, and this is potentially going to change the ecosystem of making information accessible to everyone. Right. So again, this is just a list of development organizations that Viamo has worked with to make information, critical information, available to their end users. Okay. Now to why we're all here. Generative AI for basic phones. So in the first 10 years, we typically have pre-recorded messages that are put up, right? A simple IVR menu. So I'm sure you've all engaged with, you've gotten a call from, on your phone that's saying, hello, this is a call from, could about elections or about when there was COVID, right? So that is typically the structure. Now we moved to a point where, like TikTok, like Instagram, like the social media networks, what you listen to is curated. So now if you call, for instance, our 3-to-1 platform, depending on your previous, the previous content that you listen to, you're going to get tailored content, curated content. For instance, if you listen to health and you call again, you get health. If you're a farmer and you call again, you're going to get something on agric. If you called about entrepreneurship and you did. So steadily, from the early days, it was very simple. Now we've gone to a point where we are curating the content. And the next stage that we've gotten to now is a digital assistant, unlimited opportunity. Information on demand, when you need it, how you need it, wherever you need it, for free. And that is the innovative solution that we have here. And it's only from this year. It's not a solution that's been there. It's still in development, but it's ready and it's alive. Right, so what's the problem? If Auntie AC, that's my auntie. I'm kidding, that's not my auntie. But if, for instance, she wants information on where to get malaria drugs or breastfeeding, or what does she do? She calls her son in the city, or misinformation, she goes to the neighbor, or if she has, say, Apollo, somebody puts breast milk on her eyes, because there's no access to information, really. So it's a lot about hearsay. And yes, can I see by hands everybody who has interacted with ChatGPT this year, everybody, right? Very privileged. We have access to information, and we can better our livelihood to the information that we need, apply for jobs, etc. But further down, peri-urban, rural Ghana, this is not the case. We do know that a lot of our artisans, a lot of our family folks, a lot of our countrymen in the countryside use these kind of phones. And this is all they have access to. I would say when MTN came into the market was 2003, right? 1998, about. And this is the kind of technology that was there, right? Fast forward, 2023, this is the kind of technology. That means anybody who is using this is 22 years digital divide behind. They don't have access to what you have now. And it's economically, in terms of health outcomes, in terms of all other development outcomes, the divide keeps expanding and expanding, expanding. So let's put it in a nutshell, they're about 25 years behind still, just by the virtue of lack of internet connectivity. So the data says between 43 and 60% of Ghanaians don't have internet. So just let's say 40%. What AI is going to do is deepen the divide even more, right, to those who have and those who do not have. Excuse me. So herein comes the solution that we are offering to make AI accessible to the population that potentially may be left behind. Another thing I have to say is that, I mean, here are some of the barriers, right? So device, this is 140 cedis. This is exponentially 1,000 times more expensive. Do you know what I mean? So device ownership is a big factor here. Network coverage, there are places that don't have network. Money to buy data. Electricity for some countries, not necessarily Ghana. Literacy levels, right? So if you're not literate in English, it means you're out of the conversation. You're digitally divided. You're not part of the digital community. You cannot participate. Content, that is relevant. We know that a lot of content that's created, again, is for the global north, not necessarily on the internet. It's not necessarily for the global south. So, and also, using the internet, even mobile money is a skill. Not everybody knows how to do that, right? So there's so many barriers that makes it difficult for participation generally in the ecosystem, in digital skills, and participating in the economy. So just some brief stats before we go ahead. In 2017, Africa used only 1% of the total international bandwidth. 1%. That's how far, I won't say behind, but that's how less we use the internet. And this is going to deepen even further. Internet penetration is around 40% in Africa, whereas it's over 60% in the rest of the world. Again, as I mentioned earlier, because AI is in a few languages, the algorithms are usually tailored for the global north, for Europe and the US. So it's even more difficult for some of us here to get information that is relevant to our needs, right? And this gap, we risk furthering it even more and more and more if we don't have solutions, innovative solutions to close this gap. Okay, so let's get to the solution. Generative voice-based AI for basic feature phones. So it's voice-enabled accessibility, has comprehensive information tailored to the local context. The UX is fantastic. Again, it's driven by the Viamo platform. So if you remember some of the comments I made earlier on, we have this in 21 countries. In Ghana, it's free on Vodafone. Soon to be free, by February, it will be free on MTN. 231 on MTN, 321 on Vodafone. So here's the power it's given to everyone, even those of us with smartphones. The power to ask any and every question and get a response in real time. Privacy, confidentiality, and also connect us to goods and services around us. So we're using the sort of the technology we've leveraged in other countries to power this, meaning we're able to reach people at scale, and we're able to ensure digital inclusion to a large level. Just to talk about some of the numbers of the Viamo platform. In Rwanda, we have more users than Facebook. In Nigeria, we have over 400,000 calls every month. In Tanzania, about the same. So we have people calling in to listen to news, to listen to weather, to listen to ag. But for the last 5 years, it's been really, we upload, people listen, right? It's a very manual process. But now we're getting to a point where it's going to be dynamic as and when needed. And that will be a game changer. So AI for basic smartphones is going to leapfrog desktop computers, internet literacy levels, and access to expensive devices. So this is what we envision, right? Where you can access entertainment, mobilize funds, interact with the government, clinics, community, emergency, news. The list goes on and on. So anything that you're able to do with your chat GPT, you should be able to do with a smartphone. Right. So how does it work? My colleague who put this together just walked into the room, Director of Engineering for Viamo, all the way from Canada. Maybe I'll give it to him at some point when he's settled to tell us how it works. But essentially, how it works is offline. There's a toll-free number. You call it, right? It gives you instructions, and then you ask your question. Following that, there's a series of engineering work that happens, and the magic comes back with your response. So basically, it's a voice-enabled assistant, similar to Siri, but offline. So perhaps I'll go through the pilot in Zambia that we run, and then following that, we will have a live demo. So we'll share some papers around, and you can also put on some of the questions you want to by sector. So for instance, if you're into health, agri, just ask a question you'd think your end users would love to ask an AI tool, an AI solution. Okay, so what we found out in Zambia was that a lot of the questions were about health, right? In the first 3 weeks of the study, more than a third of the questions were about health, physical or mental health. Women seem to participate more in this than men, which is interesting because typically phone ownership is skewed towards men. So usually the numbers that we see is dominated by men. But when it comes to asking questions, women seem to ask more questions. I'm not saying they're concerned, but they want to know more. So that's something that sort of was very revealing to us. So of the people who had asked legitimate questions, 90% received an answer. So it's just like ChatGPT. The accuracy of the prompts are going to give you the accuracy of your responses, right? So there's a concept, I don't know whether it's just public health, but garbage in, garbage out. So you need to be very, a bit concise with the kind of questions you ask. So 90% of persons who asked questions got legitimate responses. What are some of the questions that they asked? What are the types of contraception, right? How can I grow avocados? How much does a motorbike cost? How long can a mother breastfeed her baby? What is climate change? How much is a bicycle in Zambia? HIV positive, where? How can I start taking my medication? So you can see these touch to all facets of livelihoods. Information that they would not necessarily have access to because they don't have access to the internet and they don't have access to credible information around them. They may, but now, using their own device, their own time, they were able to ask all these questions and then they got a response that was satisfactory to them. Again, as you can see, in terms of gender, 59% women compared to 40.2% male. And in terms of age breakdown, the youth are engaging a lot with this solution. And 18 to 24 is the highest group here, and young people. I'm imagining having this tool in high school. I'll spend the whole night asking questions. about the most random things. An interesting question that we put here. I think there was a 12-year-old in Zambia who was asking questions about the weather, about bicycles. He had a question in mind, but he was beaten about the bush. And eventually, the question that he wanted to ask is, when can I start having sex? That was interesting. But here's the thing. He can't ask his mother that. Do you get what I mean? It's a very sort of intimidating question for a young person to ask. But young people like that need information. So what the AI tool did was that I'm an AI tool, like it will tell you, very generic, doesn't want to get into trouble. I can't tell you when to have sex, it's not my place to. But in the event that you want to, you need to talk to somebody, and then options for safe sex are X, Y, Z, right? So these are some of the ways that we see that young people interact with the AI. The thing about confidentiality and privacy is there for people to interact in their own time. Right, so topics: health, education, religion, culture, business, politics, agric, finance, history, geography, entertainment. These are the frequently asked questions. And in red, you can see the number of women, more women compared to men in all of these topics, right? So women from a pilot, more women engage with this. Right, and what we also found out was that after trialing this, engagement levels not spiked necessarily, but increased on our platforms. So we had 20% more users. We had sort of more calls, and then generally we had more engagement. So before and when we started, we've seen that it's a need that is there. That information gap, unmet need for information is there, and it was taking up really nicely. Okay, so there are two ways that this AI tool is going to be deployed. So there's the general ask anything, right? And we'll demo that here, ask anything, where you can ask any sort of question across any field. And there's also the curated content for specific groups, like teachers, like farmers, like pregnant women, like entrepreneurs, young people looking for skills, where AI is trained with curated content, right? So about 50, 100,000 of the most frequently asked questions, where when you ask, developed by technical experts, the AI will be trained to sieve through a database and come back with very technically accurate information that is curated for Ghana, that is very useful for the Ghanaian context, right? So there are two ways that Viamo is deploying this. First, general questions anybody can ask. And secondly, to organizations, to ministries, health organizations who want to train their health workers, skills development organizations, farmers, about seedlings, type of seedlings, about yields, about the weather, very technical information that is curated for the Ghanaian context. So these are the two use cases that we see this solution working in. Yes, as I mentioned, even civic education as well, climate change, gender, nutrition, finance, financial literacy, where the content is curated and not from the internet per se, but developed by the organizations that want very interactive discourse between them and their beneficiaries. Another thing that this will do for organizations is it allows you to understand in a more generic manner the kind of needs of your users, right? So if 80% of your users are asking about a specific thing, through this you can understand where their minds are and what they need. So it's a two-way sort of, not only you putting out information to them, but also hearing from them on a constant basis where the information gaps are. Okay, so I mentioned two ways. So for instance, there was a question about where can I get Angaza and Fida bean varieties. These are bean varieties in Zambia. So standard ChatGPT will give you like a 5-point local farmer markets, visit your local, very, very generic responses. But for the second approach where it's curated by professionals in the field, it's going to tell you exactly where, what company, give you a contact number. If you like to receive an SMS, it will also give you. So in addition to knowledge, sharing knowledge, it's going to signpost you to goods and services around you. So if it was farming, for instance, it will tell you where the seedlings are, where agric experts are, where you can secure a loan, where you can get information on financial literacy. If you're a pregnant woman, it will tell you where the closest hospital to you is. It will tell you what the contraceptive options are after you give birth, where the postnatal options are, where to get goods and services, where to talk to somebody, a hotline if you needed to talk to somebody. Okay, we've gotten to the exciting part of it, where we're actually going to try this out and get a feel of how it works. Are there any Nigerians in the room? Wow, I wanted to ask a question about jollof, but I wanted to ask AI about jollof, but dicey. But let's see what AI says, and then we can go into more specific health, agric questions. So let's do this, and then we can go a bit more into very technical. I know a lot of you here are very technical. I have expertise in different areas. So we'll pass some papers around. You send me the questions. Or better still, you come here and talk to Ask Viamo anything yourself. So what it does is, typically how it works is a hotline you can call and then access the information. Alternatively, there's a number you can beep if it's not a toll-free number, and then it calls you back, right? And then you can ask your question. So I've just beeped it, and you have a feel of it, all of you in this room, so do not worry. Oh, so my call is coming through. I would want you to hear it, so I'll take it off mute. Give me 1 second whilst I figure out my YAM phone. It's quite complex, I'm finding out. I got it 2 days ago. All right. Right, so the tool will call me back, and then I'll put you on loudspeaker, and we'll go through the user experience. George, would you want to talk about the back end, 2 minutes, about how the solution came about? All right, when we're done. Okay, so I have a call now. I'm going to put it on loudspeaker.
Our goal is to demonstrate that it is possible to bring the benefits of generative AI to hard-to-reach individuals in low-income countries on a simple voice call. Feel free to ask any question on our Ask Me Anything service. Please be aware that this is for demonstration purposes, and there may be instances where the responses provided may be incorrect. We are actively working to enhance the safety and validation features of this service. You can ask any questions such as, where can I get health service information in Accra? After the tone, ask your question and press any key.
In what country can you find the best jollof in West Africa?
Thank you for your question. Please wait a moment while I get you an answer.
I hope this AI is faithful to Ghanaians. So now it goes into a back end of surfing the internet, right?
Thank you for waiting. Your question is regarding which country in West Africa prepares the best jollof rice. This is a much debated topic, especially between Nigeria and Ghana, who both claim they make the best.
AI is not taking sides.
From a Ghanaian perspective, many believe Ghanaian jollof is superior, often credited to its unique method of preparation and the use of specific ingredients like locally produced rice and tomato stew. However, it's a subjective judgment and depends largely on individual taste preferences, as each West African country adds its unique twist to the dish. If you want more insight on this topic, you could ask questions like, what makes Ghanaian jollof unique? Or what are...
So AI doesn't want to take sides. Smart AI. So you can propose a question that we can ask. Okay.
Have you tried jollof rice from different West African
You can
countries?
ask another question about where can I
Which
find
one?
skills as a youth in Accra.
Another question, press 1. Otherwise, please ask your question after the tone and press any key when you are done.
What are the contraceptive options for men in Accra? Very dicey question.
Your question. Please wait a moment while I get you an answer.
So again, it goes back, finds the questions. My colleague here will get into the technical bits.
Thank you for waiting. Your inquiry is about contraceptive options available to men in Accra, Ghana. 1. Condoms, perhaps the most common type. They provide a physical barrier preventing sperm from reaching the egg. 2. Vasectomy. This is a minor surgical procedure which blocks or cuts the tubes that carry sperm from the testicles. 3. Withdrawal method, also known as pull-out method, where the man removes
I wouldn't recommend that.
vagina before ejaculation. Please note that it's essential to consult with a healthcare professional before choosing a contraceptive method. If you would like more information, potential questions could include, what are the pros and cons of using condoms?
Okay.
What's involved?
So, can I get a round of applause for Viamo's AI too? Thank you. Thank you very much. So that is essentially how we envisage the AI tool to be accessible, freely accessible, open, and be able to fill that digital divide, right? So, Charles, can you pass some questions around so that you write your own questions, and then we can have sort of you test. We'll put a number together here, and you can test on your own, ask your own questions, get the responses. We want this to be as interactive as possible. Right. So, yes, so we'll pass some questions around. So are there any questions at this stage before we go on? Yes. Can you pass the mic, please? There's an extra mic. Oh, does that work? Okay, we can pass this around. I'm sure I can.
Hello, my name is Wilfred. I'm actually very impressed with Viamo currently because I'm trying to build an AI strategy in health. And my question would be, one, do you have, because you're very offline, do you have consumable APIs that people like me who are trying to come up with a digital, not a digital, an AI strategy can consume? And two, how dynamic is the model? Is it how current is the data that the model, uses to generate the information that it does?
Luckily for me, I have my director of engineering here. Came to save the day.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is George. I'm director of engineering at Viamo, and first off, it's a pleasure to be back home. Supposed to be on holidays, but I heard of this program and he told me about it, so I said I'll definitely pass by. That's a great question in terms of how current the information will work with. One is we're leveraging a number of technologies that are already available. Various LLMs, GPT, Llama 2, whatever is existing. It's a very new space. I'm sure many of you have tried one form of AI tools as are available in the market. And so we're also limited by what they have currently in their knowledge base. But what we're doing, as Nee mentioned, is we're augmenting that knowledge. So we're doing that augmenting through, for example, what we call the Ask an Expert feature. The Ask an Expert feature is where you can have your own knowledge added to augment what already exists in there. Yeah.
The other question was, do you have consumable APIs to the model?
Yeah, good question. So this is very early stage. So we're definitely looking for, and that's actually a big reason why I'm here, for technical partnerships as well, right? Because 10 years ago when we started Viamo in Kumasi on the University of Science and Technology campus, it was in Accra like this where we did a demo and we reached out and we've grown since. And so partnerships are what makes us thrive. So if you're here in this space, we're definitely looking to explore because there are definitely challenges in this thing and it's evolving. So looking forward to have a chat and see what ways we can collaborate on. Yeah. I think there's a question just in front of you.
Okay, thank you. Well done, guys. I think your product is amazing, and it's not something that we've seen a lot of right now on the continent, right? So my question here is about your business model, because a lot of it is free, right? It's free for people to use. So I want to understand what your business model is. That's one question. Another question is, he talked about industries or sectors that ask the most questions, health and all of that. So I was curious about what questions, he talked about geography. So my question is, what are these questions? What's the trend when it comes to like questions that people ask as regards geography? Thank you.
Okay, great question. I think the first one was about business model. I'll talk about that, but I'll leave that for him a bit. And then in geographies, I think based on each country, for example, we've been working in Zambia. Zambia has been our pilot country right now where we've opened it up to a number of our platform users. So let me spin this a bit. Viamo's business model essentially is we are a social enterprise. We build technologies that help connect typically who we'll call the digital disadvantaged or the digital disconnected. So you can imagine with a feature phone, you're able to access, capabilities on the internet. You can find out, where you can get health information in Accra and so on. And so that's what we set out to do, to bridge the typical disconnected. So Nee mentioned the women who would call into these services, and some of the trends that we've seen in Zambia is trends about people asking about health information, young people asking about, sexual reproductive health care. And typically what we've done in over 20 countries we operate in is we have something known as the Viamo platform. In Ghana, it's on 321 with Vodafone. And so when you call Vodafone, or sometimes you might get a text from them, when you call in, you can hear news, you can hear the weather, today's weather. You can follow a couple of, what's this guy's name? The Sakura guy, what would be his name? Yes, Kojo Sheldon. He puts some of his content on the 321 platform. So it means even if you don't have data, you can actually listen to current affairs on that. So that's our model that we operate in various countries as well. And so many of our users who are trying this in Zambia are actually super users on that platform who access it just like any other content. Yes.
Okay. Hello, can I continue?
Yes, please.
Great. So I pretty much have a challenge here. I understand that the whole concept is about audio, right? Now, my question is, you talked about about 20% spike in the calls that you people are receiving over the release you've been doing. What is the average call rate that you people have been able to accommodate? Because I know the whole concept about internet and information is how long you can keep the person researching, how long you can keep the person to continue with the search or whatever he's doing. And looking at the concept from the audio perspective, I'm beginning to wonder, how are you people able to get people to stay on phone, listening to a call of information for a very long time?
That's a great question. We've been learning. It's taken us over 10 years, or someone would say a decade of learning. It's taken that long because we evolve the engagement. So Seth, who sits at the back, is on our team known as the mobile engagement experts. Typically, they work with various partners or organizations to design mobile engagement surveys. The reason why we anchored this way is because many people, who we intend to reach for the most part to create the most impact, do not have access to the internet like you and I. Many of the times, they also do not have access to information services. And so you'd find out that barriers, distance of education, distance of literacy, you could send them an SMS. We actually support other channels like SMS and WhatsApp. Like, it's possible to, have these capabilities on those channels. But usually we anchor towards audio because we find that, one, we can reach people in a way they understand easily. They can call in and hear it in their local languages. They can also interact and stay engaged. And so what Set's team does is they take your content, say you're a partner who's looking to reach a certain group of people in a certain area, and then they help you design an engagement system. So for example, it could be maybe an audio series. You listen to it, you interact with it. Our very first project when we were launching out was a partnership with Vodafone. It was a mobile for good health line where expectant mothers in northern Ghana will receive a weekly message telling them about, oh, you're in week X of your pregnancy. This is what you would see in your body, and this is how you should take care of yourself and your unborn child. So usually the content is structured to engage the users. So they call back in, and then they keep engaging over time and answering questions as well. Thank you. Do you have anything to add?
Hi.
Okay. Thank you, George. And please don't go too far in case there are more technical questions for you. Yes.
So my question is a less technical question. My name is Precious. Hi, everyone. So considering, this is an amazing product, by the way, but considering that your target are those that do not have access to, digital technology, right? I want to know how you have been able to reach them, because obviously you cannot put up like social media ads and all of that.
Right.
So how have you been able to reach them?
I just want to show if my internet is great. So there's a whole community of offline, right? Not like me and you, who don't have any medium of accessing information, right? What we do is, if you have Vodafone, you will notice that every other week you get an SMS from Vodafone about 321, right? And we have these partnerships across all our countries with the telcos. The telcos see this, the agreements we have with them, they see this as CSR to a large extent, where they are providing information for good. So in Liberia and Ghana and all the other countries, the telcos put the information out about these hotlines, about the information there. And I'm just showing you a live dashboard. So another thing that we are quite big on is data and dashboards and real-time data. So if I go into Nigeria, we're looking at 51 million calls this year. Malawi, 32 million calls. DR Congo, 25 million calls. So the people keep coming back. And there are countries that we've reached over 10% of the population because they find the news information very relevant, they find the weather very relevant. But back to your question, it's through partnerships with the telcos, it's through radio collaborations with radio stations who provide us news services, and generally word of mouth, interpersonal communication. All right. Any other question before we go to showing you the number to test?
Okay. Please, a quick one from her own. Like the way ChatGPT and the other ones are all over the internet, why not make this one also, let me say, well-known like that? Why not also make it available? And also, back to my question too, with the way you said people do ask questions, I want to ask, is he able to handle about, let's say, 500 calls at a time? Is he able to handle that? And my second question is that, does the service provide feedback in other languages? If it does, which other languages does it provide feedback in? Thank you.
Yeah.
Well known to the world. That's why we are here today. In terms of making it well known and accessible and open, that's why we are here today, to share this. And George, remind me, it started this year. We launched in May, so it's very early days. And we are also figuring things out. So to that question, you had another question about language models and...
Yeah, so you asked about languages, support for languages. We're still early days in this, but we're experimenting. One will be launching later this year, which is essentially a few weeks now, in Tanzania and Kenya, potentially. It's very experimental, but one of the things that comes, and as you follow the AI trends, is there's also some level of responsibility, right? So when you eventually, try out demo lines, you would hear, the sort of the disclaimer we're putting out there, because there are things we need to also take responsibility for in terms of moderation. What kind of content can we release? How do we handle, certain queries to the system? And then you did ask questions about how many calls can we support. Currently, it depends also on our in-country capabilities. I think that's a very important part to highlight. So again, to our 10 years of relationships that we've built across Africa, Asia, and most of the world, we have the capabilities of calling any phone on the planet. And so it's only limited by our, various inter-country bandwidths and relationships that we have. I think in Ghana, we could do about 400 simultaneous calls. It varies based on different regions that we operate in. Yeah.
So essentially, in some of our countries, we are able to make over 200,000 calls a day, sometimes more, right? So the number of concurrent calls is not a problem. What we find in a country like Nigeria is we keep upgrading our call capacity because users max it out, right? And a lot of other countries. But in terms of concurrent calls, is also, as he said, dependent on infrastructure. And when we hit our peak, we talk to the telcos to expand it a bit more. One last, I see there are a lot of AI questions here. Unfortunately, I can't take them, but I'll allow you to ask yourself. George, we can do that. We can open it up for our audience to test. All right, there's one last question. That's mindful of time. Okay, two last questions, I guess. Lady in black. Mike, can we have a mic to her?
Hi, hello. So my question is, in various African countries that you operate in, does the AI support their local languages? If no, my question will be, since your target people is basically people in rural areas, and I don't know about here, but those people also, most of them don't speak English. If so, how are you trying to also to tackle that communication problem?
Right, that's a good question. For now, we know there are only about 200 languages, and these are main languages, but I'll let George take.
Yeah, sure, thanks. I think that's one limitation we have, and that's part two of why we're here. We're looking for technical partners in those areas, right? Because we would call those, in terms, long-tailed languages. Like, they do not have a lot of support for. And so we know there are a number of various organizations working in smaller areas trying to give, visibility to various languages around the world. And those are things we're looking forward to doing. We're actually in talks with other technical organizations in doing this work. But if there's any such in this room, we're definitely excited to partner with you in providing coverage in that area.
One last question, and then we wrap it up.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, amazing product. My question is, how do you take feedback from the user? I mean, looking at your target audience, they're the unbanked. So how do you take feedback from them? I mean, if they're using your product and it's not working as it should, I mean, in their regard, how do you take feedback?
Yeah, so there was a pilot, and there were questions that were asked. There was a whole survey tool, questionnaire tool. And typically, not just for this, but for all our products, I personally have been in Bauchi, Kebbi, Sokoto, Oyo, Ebonyi, Monrovia, Buchanan, Addis Ababa, Kigali, testing with users, right? Sitting down with teachers, sitting down with health workers, finding out their experience, whether it works for them, whether it's relatable. But for AI specifically, George, any more to add?
Yeah, so like Nee says, we have the platform managers like Seth and the mobile engagement teams. They design the engagement in a way that they can also collect feedback on the calls, right? So our content is sort of not just pushing information, but it can also collect information back, either through open-ended responses like, tell me, you know, how was this experience, or through surveys like, rate this, or, you know, how would you measure X, Y, Z? So you design the surveys to get the response back. With AI, what we've done is we've also been, on our R&D team, been paying more attention to you know, the insights coming in. So I was just going through my slides there where, you know, weekly we share updates on this is what we're learning from the users. So when you experience it, you realize it's almost behaving as though you called into a call center. We realize that many people enjoy that experience, even though, you know, not really enjoy it. They're most used to the experience, calling into a call center and being put on hold whilst we go get it for you. So that's what we've sort of facsimulated. We've created it to feel that way. It's iterated at least a few times since May, because we're learning that, oh, a user is calling in and they're just like sitting down waiting, and maybe they think their phone has hung up, so they just cut the line. So various things have been in the works, and we keep learning and drawing insights from that. Yes. Is your time up?
Yes, so unfortunately our time is up, but we are here for a bit to take any questions. If you're a partner and you would like to talk to us some more, exploring this in a bit more detail, let us know. Here's the number. You can try for yourself. I know there are a lot of questions. You can ask your question, follow it, and it will respond to you beautifully. So thank you so much for... Yes, it will call you back. You beep it, it cuts off, and it calls you back. So thank you so much for being here. Very interactive session. We enjoyed sharing it with you. If you have feedback, let us know. If you'd want to talk to us some more, we're right here in this corner, and we are happy to continue the conversations. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day. Yes, and that's my email in case you'd want to reach out. Thank you.